A lot of web developers today are using Cordova to create native applications with HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. The problem is there's a lot of loose pieces of Cordova and no useful controls like the ones you get with iOS and Android. Thankfully, we have Ionic. Ionic is the go-to framework for Cordova. It provides us with all the controls we'd expect from a native framework like iOS and Android. Ionic is written on top of AngularJS, so we can leverage all of the great features of Angular to build awesome cross-platform apps. Ionic comes with a great command line tool that makes it easy to set up and build projects. To install it, run the command npm install-g Cordova Ionic. I've already installed the Ionic CLI, so next I'll start a project using Ionic's start command with our app name. We're going to build a grocery list application. Ionic has a few built-in templates you can generate, and we'll use the blank template to start with an empty project. To do this, I'll run the command ionic start groceries blank. This is generating a new project with a conventional Ionic application structure. Next, let's cd into our apps directory. To add the necessary hooks for using our project with Cordova, I'll need to run the command ionic hooks add. To tell Ionic that we want to enable the app for iOS, we'll run the command ionic platform add iOS. And we'll do the same for Android. Now let's open our app in Sublime. In our Platforms directory, we can see now that Ionic has compiled the iOS and Android source code for our app. All of the code we'll be writing will be within the www directory. We'll use the command ionic serve -- lab to open our app in the browser with a side-by-side iOS and Android view. Right now our app is empty. The first thing we'll build is the interface for adding grocery items. Let's open up index.html. We'll delete the Bootstrap template and add a template for creating new lists. Ionic uses Angular directives, which makes it easy to mimic mobile interactions in our app. Most mobile apps have a title bar. In Ionic, we can use an ion header bar directive to create this. When this plus button in our title bar is pressed, it will call an add item function, which will prompt the user for the name of the item they'd like to add. To create the main view for our app, we'll use the ion content directive. Within ion content, we'll create an ion list. Ion list provides a list view, which is a basic interface in many mobile apps. We'll use the ion item directive, which is similar to table cells or list items on mobile. Within the ion item directive, we'll use Angular's ng-repeat to iterate over our list items. We'll wire up the body of our app to our list controller, which we'll write next. If we open up the app.js file that was generated for us, we'll notice that a global Angular app module named starter has been defined. For the simplicity of this demo, we'll remove the run function and start from scratch. The first thing we'll add is our list controller. We'll start by storing our items in an empty array. Next, we'll write the add item function, which is called when the plus button is pressed. It will prompt the user to enter the name of the item they want to add to the list, and then we'll push this list item to our items array so that it's added to our ion list template. Now we can add items to our list and see them displayed in our list view. In our app, we want to be able to cross off items once we buy them. The ion item directive makes it easy to add swipe gestures to our UI, so let's update our template to include a check mark, which will be shown when each item is swiped. We'll use ng-class to apply the CSS class purchase to each item once it's been checked. The ion option button is an Ionic directive that will be shown when a user swipes each ion item in the list. We'll add a checkmark icon and call a purchase item function when the checkmark is pressed, passing it the item. Next, let's add the purchased class to our CSS. We need to inject Ionic list delegate into our controller to control the items in the list. Next, in our purchase item function, we'll set the item status to purchase so that our purchase CSS class will be applied. The close option buttons will close the swipe button on that list item. Now when we add a new item and check it off our list, you'll notice that the CSS class purchased is applied. But our lists aren't synced between clients, and the list data disappears when we refresh the page. To make this app usable, we need to add a backend. To do this, we'll use Firebase. Since Ionic is written in Angular, we'll use Firebase's AngularFire library in our app. To add AngularFire to our app, we can include Firebase and Angular in our app's index.html file right before our app.js include. We also need to add Firebase as a dependency in our global app module. Now we have a set of services available provided by AngularFire. Let's create an items factory that uses Firebase Array. Firebase Array is a smart array that keeps your local Angular data in sync with your remote Firebase data. It takes a Firebase reference and returns a JavaScript array which contains the data at that Firebase location. Every piece of data in Firebase is referenced by a URL. I've already created a Firebase for this application called Ionic FB Demo. Be sure to replace Ionic FB Demo with the name of your own Firebase. If I go to this URL, I can see where all of the data for my application will be stored. It's empty right now because we haven't added any items yet. Now we'll inject our items factory into our controller. Since items is now a Firebase array, we'll use it instead of an empty array. We can use AngularFire's $add function instead of push. Add creates a new record in Firebase and adds the record to our synchronized array. Now our list items are being stored in Firebase under a unique ID, and they're being synced across clients. Last, we'll update our purchased item function to persist the purchase status in Firebase. We'll create a reference to that item using the $ID property to get the item's Firebase ID. We'll use Firebase's set method to update the item's status to purchased in Firebase. Now we have a cross-platform grocery list app that works on iOS and Android. To recap, we created our UI using Ionic directives for our app's title and list view. Then we wrote a function to save our items to a local array. We used an Ion option button control to add swiping gestures to our app, and wrote a function to set an item's status to purchased and cross it off the list. Finally, we used Firebase to persist our app's data and sync items across clients. A link to the completed app on GitHub can be found in the video description. Thanks for watching!